S10E24. That's all we need.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the Tigers Down Under. I'm your host Alex, and with me I have Dill. How are you, Dill?
Good, mate. Good. Bit warm. It's a bit hot in Brisbane. I hear it's raining muggy down in Sydney at the moment.
Yeah, it's sort of muggy, raining. It was torrential yesterday, and it's I think been a bit better today, but it's just got that humidity where you just feel like it's going to open up at any minute. So we'll see how we go. Yeah, it's been, courtesy of the FA Cup, we had a postponement over the weekend, so we haven't actually had a City match in about 10 days, which is unfortunately the Stoke fixture at the MK was our last game to talk about. Somewhat sarcastically titled episode of the home comforts, because I think it's, I think we literally have the worst record in the championship at home, which is quite remarkable. But maybe I'll start with you. I know you only caught the start of this game, so maybe we'll talk the start of the game and, obviously the positives that came with Matazo, opening the scoring quite early on, and I guess the hope that we could kick on with it.
Yeah, well, like you said, I only really caught the first 10 minutes of the game, unfortunately. But like I said before, I dozed off after we scored. So I was hoping to wake up to an awesome 3-0 win. But and the stats that I'm looking at now could have alluded to that as well. But I don't know. We looked all right in the first 10 minutes that I was able to see. And like the scoring off a set piece, which I think a corner, that was, we don't usually do those often. So it was good to get at least one of those stats up. But 22 shots, 8 on target, which is probably a lot less than you would like on target for 22 shots. But, I think in every single stat, we did better than them, 59% possession. But end of the game, 1-2.
Yeah, it was definitely one of those games where it did feel like the longer that first half went and the more chances that were created, Johansson, who seems to always pull off a blinder against us in goal for Stoke, you did sort of feel that the longer it stayed 1-0, it was one of those games where, all it would take would be one chance for Stoke and they'd be right back in it. And it's sort of weird in a way, because I was sort of reflecting that in the immediate post-match, a lot of fans were sort of understandably sort of clinging to or looking for reasoning for why we lost the game. And, people sort of questioning the lineup because Crooks, who scored against Sheffield United, came out with a small sort of injury. Joseph and Burns also out for Jacob and Matazo. For Jacob and Pedro. Where I think, Pedro's sort of shown, I think he's still probably our primary striker. He created a lot of good chances in this game, had a few really good chances himself. He laid one off for Matazo in I think the first half. He had a shot himself from a really good Kamara cutback. It's hard to blame the lineup necessarily, and even the subs. Like I've seen people sort of saying like, Stoke subs were more effective than ours, and objectively yes, because they scored and assisted, I think. But even looking at our subs, like I thought Barry played quite well. I thought who else came on really? I mean, I guess Crooks came on, I think, and a few others, but it didn't seem as if we dropped off, I guess is what I'm getting at as the game wore on. I thought as you said there, like 22 shots, 8 on target. It's not like last season where we had that game at home against Stoke where we lost 1-0 and had no shots. 8 on target. Like it's still a really good performance. It's still creating a lot of chances. So it's just, I think, as frustrating as it is sometimes to just say it's one of those things, and because we've had so many of them this season where you have those games where you say on another day we should have scored and we didn't, and it's about changing those patterns and changing those fortunes, because it's just the story of this season. But I mean, I guess the only criticism I'd have, I don't know if you've had the chance to see the highlights, but Kamara, I thought, had a really impressive game. And so I'd kind of question the timing of taking him off. I probably would have taken Gelhardt off over him to start with.
It looks like, I'm seeing here triple sub, 56 minutes in. There was Joseph came on for Pedro, Coyle for Drama, and Barry for Kamara. And then I think Geldhard came off later in the game for Amrabat in 82 minutes in, which is, it's towards the end anyways. But
and it's tough as well because the goals were both reasonably individual efforts. So Drame for the first goal, I think basically fresh air as a clearance, and Al Hamidi scores. And then for the second one, Jacob tries to head it clear and the ball, and sort of mistimes it, and the ball goes past him for them to cut back. So you can kind of get that frustration where it's you've sort of self-inflicted. But I don't know. It's a really tough one to get too critical of. Outside of, I think, it's more about who came off and when rather than necessarily who came on. But look, and even then, and actually, you've just triggered my memory. Like talking about Amrabat, I thought Amrabat was fantastic when he came on. Like he has no pace, but I just don't know how he just beats his man. Like he just has a bit of skill, drops the shoulder or whatever and just gets past his man. And I'm like, it's sort of, you picture like the 38-year-old blokes playing in your local league who just have a bit of, trickery about them, and they can just sort of wrong foot you and get past you. But
they're really smooth to watch. They just sort of somehow get by. And
it's like the slow motion. It's like it sort of fools you because it's the lack of pace almost. But look, it's just one of those games, I think. And like, we sort of have to, it's frustrating, I suppose, because if you flip the results and you said you take the 3 points against Stoke and you lose to Sheffield United, it's obviously going to be much better for us because it denies Stoke the 3 points essentially. So it's frustrating in that sense of like how the results fall. But I don't know. I struggled to be too upset with this just because I thought the performance was still really good.
Yeah, and if we, just based on stats alone and, if we can plug the defense, like I think we were talking the other day just on how many wins we need at the back, like, coming into the back end of the season, or how many points. And I think we're on 30 something, and we'll need to aim for 46, I think is like the average that, the average amount of points that keeps you safe within this season. Hopefully we, get up to 60 somehow. But I think with an effort like this, if we can keep that up for the next, quite a few fixtures, we got some hard ones, we got some easy ones. I think we've got a better run than most, maybe compared to some other teams from memory. But I didn't get to see the game, but it seems like we did pretty well. It's just unfortunate that 1-2.
Yeah, and I think the other interesting element will be that I guess when you sort of look at what was the difference between the Sheffield United game and this game, where the subs that Sayas was able to bring on in that Sheffield United game were players that he was much more familiar with and knew, like he's bringing on Pedro, he's bringing on Jacob, things like that. Whereas in this game, he's throwing on Barry and other new signings where they're good players, but I guess Sayas hasn't had as long to work with them and therefore doesn't know exactly where or how best to use them or when to throw them on or who to bring them on for. So I think having had this 10-day block of, getting used to the players, getting the players into the system should hopefully do us really well. And it shows that we've now got quite a deep squad that, potentially, and we'll talk lineup for the Burnley game a little bit later, but you've got guys like Kamara, Gelhardt, Barry, Enrique, if he comes into the squad, Amrabat. Like there's a lot of wide up Burstow as well. There's a lot of wide attacking options now. It really should bode well for us in those games against those lesser sides.
Yeah, and if we have any sort of tighter fixtures, I can't remember when they all sort of fall, but if we've got 3 fixtures over 1.5 weeks, then obviously having a bit more depth is going to help us. But well, I guess looking at the individual efforts from those 2 goals at Stoke, what was the defense looking like? Who did we have at the back? Was it McLaughlin, Jones, just the regular? I think Matty Jacob came on at one point there.
First goal was Drame. Who started at the back? It was Drame, Jones, McLaughlin, and Jacob. Drame, to be fair to him, like as poor as he was for the first goal, did make up for it early in the second half with like a goal line clearance. So he I wouldn't say he was overall poor in the game. He just had one of those moments, and I guess it's frustrating because those moments are so costly. It's like Giles in the cup against Doncaster. It's like you have that one moment where you switch off, but it costs the goal. Whereas the second one, I suppose it was more of a goalmouth scramble where the ball's kind of getting, I think it got cleared and then it comes back in, and Jacob missed the header. I have a feeling it was actually Coyle who was standing in front of the player that actually scored. So it was a bit of a mess in that sense for that one. But you know, it's just, I don't know. I think it's frustrating because it's like sort of like the QPR game as well, where you think, you know, if we can just keep it a bit tighter and keep that clean sheet, we probably walk away with two pretty gritty wins in those two games. So yeah, bit tough to take in that sense. But I don't know if you were going to offer up any votes for this game from the time you saw, or else I'm happy just to give mine.
I'll go yours. You know, if McLaughlin did well, McLaughlin did great. And then Kamara and Matazo. Obviously, Matazo got the goal. That's maybe he gets all three of mine. So
yeah. As those sort of like the standout from that 10 minutes. I've gone McLaughlin for the throw. I thought, you know, he had a chance late on with a header to get us back into it, and I think he's really impressed a lot. And I think it's interesting. Sayers has come out and sort of said, you know, we would have pursued a left back towards the end of the transfer window, but the way McLaughlin's kind of come in and commanded that position at times has shown his versatility and sort of his value in the side. So I think he's really, I mean, he's sort of like Slater. He's like Coyle. He's like a few of those guys where you get a new manager come in and these guys just have that fight and that desire to sort of prove their spot in the squad. And he sort of perseveres. And then, sort of Kamara and Matazo sort of, you know, we've touched on already. I thought Kamara had a really fantastic game, and Matazo looked really good with the goal and really promising full debut in that midfield role. And then, special shout out to Amrabat, who I didn't give a vote to, but I thought, I think he's one of those guys that because you probably have such a low base of expectation for their performance levels that when they do play really well, you're like, oh wow, that's like it's pretty impressive. All right, we'll rattle through sort of the end of the transfer window since that took place since the last episode. Just get your thoughts. Obviously, so Louis Barry signed on that loan deal, and also John Egan joined permanently from Burnley, which I guess John Egan joining and kind of coupled with our chat just then about McLaughlin does suggest perhaps that McLaughlin's going to be more used in that left back role. But I guess as an overall, like your thoughts on how, you know, that window went. Was it 7-8 players, I think, in the end that we signed? Yeah,
we got quite a few. For some reason, I thought we were close to potentially a record or something like that for a January transfer window. I don't know. I guess we nailed places that we sort of. Well, I saw someone talking about like that, like, you know, they said this window we've been able to, like, they've summed up that we're able to get the players that we need to sort of fill the positions that we're either lacking in or whether it's people are injured. We've got quite a few injuries. But then, you know, it would have been great to see a left back in there. But I thought to myself, we could say, like, you know, for the people that we've lost, replace the people that we've lost, injured, or, you know, just not doing as well. But we didn't get a solid left back. And I've just thought to myself that this is the same story every single transfer window. Like since I think Elder has been around since we've had Elder as like the main left back. It's not necessarily an issue. I guess our squad's evolved a lot over the last, you know, 4 seasons or so, as most squads as well. But this one, I don't know. I like there's just always so many new names that come into the fold, and I can't even catch up sometimes with like who we've got. Barry's great, and Egan as well. And I was going to say before, we've got Casey Palmer and Hughes coming back. Well, not coming back, but, you know, first team training again. So I'm guessing, you know, there'll be some more competition there in a few weeks' time. But the transfer window seemed good. You know, I only really heard mostly positive things, and it didn't feel like we're it didn't feel like we were a struggling club in terms of, we couldn't get players because they didn't want to come here. It still seemed like we could actually get some solid players, and luckily we don't. Well, hopefully we don't have that perception that, like, look, if you're going to go here, you're not going to do well, or if you come here, the club's in shambles. It doesn't feel like we're in shambles.
No.
So far.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, like I think Lincoln Enrique probably highlights, your comment around losing track of all the players that come in. You go, it'd be very easy to forget that he joined us. It'll be interesting to see if we do see anything in the short term out of him. I think Omer has completed a move back to a Turkish club on loan, which, to an extent, I feel like it does sort of underline that Acun's desire to bring these guys in from Turkey doesn't generally work out. So I do wonder a little bit if Enrique's at least, Enrique's just a loan. But it does feel like we kind of have one of these come through each window and not really contribute too much to the side. But we'll see how it all goes. And look, I think you're right. Like, I can't think, outside of Charlie Taylor, that left back we looked at for a little while, I don't think there's anyone that we were really sort of heavily going for who ended up sort of turning us down. So I think, like, the fact that we were able to get Louis Barry, who I think half the league basically were after, I know he was linked to Leeds, Southampton, Sunderland for a while, is a real coup in that sense. And so it'll be really interesting to see how he goes for us. There's the potential he comes back next season on loan as well, which I think is the main one, where, to your point around, you sort of have each window, this rotating door of players. The more we can sort of lock down for the next sort of 12, 18 months at least, definitely helps for a bit more stability and continuity inside.
Is he just on a short term, Barry? Is he? I thought I saw like an 18-month.
Yeah, so I think it's technically a 6-month loan, but then I think they've said they're open to doing another 12 months next year, depending on how it goes, I suppose. I'm sure if it was terrible, or he wasn't able to get into the side or whatever, they'd probably take him somewhere else. But you'd like to think that will be a good spot for him, and Saya seems to be good at developing young players. So fingers crossed that all goes well. All right, well, we'll talk Burnley now. Scott Parker's side having conceded just the 9 goals for the season, which is reasonably remarkable in 31 games. More remarkable, I think, is the fact that we scored one of those 9 goals, which was one of Walter's last games, I think, which is kind of crazy when you think back on that, because I'm like, it didn't seem that crazy at the time. I think it was Pedro who might have scored early in the game at the MKM. And we really should have, I say we should have held on for the win. My memory is it was a late equalizer, but then they had a really easy chance to win it and then completely fluffed it in the last couple of minutes in the game. It's such a strange, it's one of those things where from the outside you kind of go, sure, like, they can't be that good at defending. Like, they can't be that ridiculous. So I'm kind of like, because they're struggling to score as well. Like, it's not like they're winning 3-0 each week. Like, they're getting a lot of 0-0s and 1-0s. So I sort of, it almost makes me sort of weirdly confident going into this game. I don't know.
Yeah, just taking a look at their goals for, they're at 37, and then goals against, 9. And so there's a goal difference of 28, and just literally like above them or below them, it's more up into the 40s, and then obviously leads on the top with 62 goals this season. But that's kind of crazy to see where they're at.
We've only scored 6 less than them.
Yeah, true. Yeah, it really puts it into perspective. It's such a funny broad table to look at, and how close everything is, and it gives you hope, doesn't it? If we for a few more.
Yeah, I usually write down, sort of a player to watch out for from the opposition. I've just got James Trafford as the goalkeeper, because I don't know if the attacking players really fill me with. They signed someone on loan from Sporting. I think he scored the winner against Southampton in the FA Cup the other morning. The name's gone out of my head, though. I will look it up. But I think he's sort of, the flashy, Marcus Edwards, I think it was. He's sort of the flashy new attacking talent that they've brought in. But I look at our side and I think we've got quite a bit of attacking talent ourselves now. Is there, I suppose, from that Stoke fixture, like, is there anyone that you see as deserving of a start to come into the side for this one, or sort of a similar lineup to the last game?
I'm not sure. I don't know. Would you start Barry potentially, or well, yeah, I don't know how fast Burnley are as a team, but Amrabat, see what he could conjure up to. But like, yeah, I don't know. I'd like to see. I don't know. Maybe I think that's Lincoln was injured at the moment, isn't he?
I think. Oh yeah, or just like unfit, or you know.
Okay, yeah. So potentially similar. You know, if those effort areas were pretty solid, then maybe you bring them in, and I don't know, sort of assess what we had different at Sheffield, and you know, if they're a similar team in a way to Verse, just because they're at the top of the table. I don't know. We'll just have to bring the dog. The dog.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's where I'm like, I feel like under Sayers we're becoming a much more physical team, and that's where I almost wonder if you do throw someone like John Egan in, ironically against the side we signed him from, as that really experienced centre back. You know, maybe you put McLaughlin out on the left, so you've got that height and physicality in defence, and then like whether it's a Puerta comes in from like my conspiracy theory on Puerta, who's conveniently been out of the starting 11 for the last few games, was the fact that I think there was a trigger in his loan deal that once he started or once he played a certain number of games for us, it was permanent. But I think, and I could be wrong on this, I think if there's a clause like that that gets triggered after the January window, the purchase counts for the summer window. So my conspiracy theory is that the club sort of said to Sayers, you know, don't play him for a couple of games. You can play him for the first game after the window shuts. That's fine, because then instead of buying him in January, we're buying him in the summer. It means we can buy like Matazo and stuff. Yeah, I'll be skeptical. I mean, I could see him coming in from the start for this game. I think, like for instance, Puerta in for Slater, Egan in for Jacob, with McLaughlin going to the left, and maybe Barry coming in for I guess for Kamara, but I thought he was good. Maybe for Gelhardt, I guess. I could see, or even just Barry off the bench again. I think he's got pace. Whether he comes on and sort of, you know, switches for Kamara late on and tries to use his pace to break down Burnley. But I don't know. I think in any sort of game like this where they just don't score many goals, you're always a chance. Like if we can score somehow, you're sort of almost guaranteed to walk away with at least a point.
I think we just can't let ourselves get pressured. Yeah. And, you know, if we get confused at the back, which we've done multiple times this season, where we're just sort of trying to play out from the back end, it sort of fumbles because some teams are just so well versed at just stabbing through that defense. And I'm just trying to remember the Sheffield game where I don't think that was something that we did, where we didn't really play out the back that often in a, you know, like shit, we're under pressure approach, but more just like I think they were a bit more calm and collected with the ball, and that allowed them then just to keep pushing forward. And so I don't know if Burnley is a fixture where we can sort of implement something similar, and if it's going to be a low scoring game, then hopefully it's a good one. But
yeah, I'm sort of that's sort of, I mean, they drew 0-0 with Portsmouth, who I can't say would be much better than us. So I'm just sort of dreading that it's just going to be some dour 0-0 game, which look, I mean, you take the point, I suppose, but it's just, you know, not too excited to watch this one. I think we'll see.
Was it Leeds Burnley or Leeds?
Yeah, Leeds Burnley. It was awful. I think I caught the last little bit of it, which I think was the only bit that I had any action in it. But it sounds as if from everyone that watched the whole thing, there wasn't too much action going on in that game.
Well, hopefully they're under pressure, so we can use that to our advantage.
Yeah. Almost at the other end of the spectrum, we have Norwich on the weekend, managed by Hofthorpe. Biggest loss of the season was to them, 4-0, which was right after our 3-game winning run under Volta. Borges Hines is back for this one from his 6-game spitting ban. Josh Sargent is getting back to fitness for them as well. They haven't been in great form. I think they've only got 2 wins in the last 5, but they always feel like a side that have goals in them. And I guess in a weird way, like they're almost becoming a bit of a rivalry for us. Like we've had a few sort of controversial matches with them lately. When you think back to last season with the first game of the season, where I think their winning goal was basically scored from out of play in the 99th minute. And Angus Gunn taking out Aaron Connolly in the reverse fixture. There's a little bit of spice in these games.
Yeah, it does seem like Norwich is a bit more, and maybe it's a psychological thing because you just always remember. I always remember Norwich games a little bit more, like having a bit more personality, but maybe because they're always in like bright yellow, that triggers something in the brain. But yeah, I don't know. I always look forward to a Norwich fixture. There's always something going on, and yeah, like that Connolly. I don't know how, like, because we got booked for that as well. Like, I think Connolly got booked for going in on it, but like all those replays, it just, I don't know what the keeper was thinking. But yeah, excited for this one.
Any sort of confidence for that one? Sorry?
So when do we play that? We play that on
Saturday night.
On Saturday.
So we got Sunday.
So we got game Thursday and this one. So what?
So Burnley's Thursday morning, and then the fixture with Norwich is 2 a.m. Sunday. Yeah. So they're 8. So they're not, they're not flying, but
it's not unachievable.
No. It's interesting now, having been the side with games played over the teams around us for so much of the season. We're now one of the teams that have a game in hand. So I look at like Portsmouth in 20th place, 1 point ahead of us with much worse goal difference. And you sort of think, even if we just get a point out of these Burnley and Norwich games, we're a reasonable chance to sort of start to creep up the table again. So I don't know. It's a really tricky 2 fixtures in that sense. I mean, we were talking in the chat that we do have a really nice run of games coming up in the not too distant future. Yeah. But like any sort of points gained in these 2 games, I feel like is a positive, really.
Yeah. This would be, especially coming into the rest of those fixtures, I think Norwich would be the one to, well, both of them would be the one to win, but I think Norwich might be a bit more achievable potentially. But if we can scrap that would be great running into the rest of the fixtures. And because I think it was, if we can at least win all of the quote easy fixtures. I don't like saying that because we might have thought Stoke could have been a bit easier, but like if we can come away with points for this, that will at least put us in the right step towards staying up or landing in a better position. And it just would make it feel a little bit more safe. And I think generally I feel more safe now than what I did under Volta. Maybe that's a shared feeling as well, but I've got confidence in Sayers to sort of pull something off.
It is interesting, I will say. So Derby County in 22nd, so a place behind us, did sack their manager over the weekend, and it does sound like they're getting John Eustace in from Blackburn, which I don't know.
Very confusing. I don't know why.
Why you'd leave a club in 6th for a club in 22nd? I mean, there's some speculation that the Blackburn owners aren't great to work for, so maybe he's just sort of wanting. But even so, like if you're in 6th place, you're a chance at promotion, and then everything can change if you're managing a club in the Premier League. But who knows? It's a bit of a wild world. So see if he goes there. That does probably change things a little bit down the bottom of the table. But you're right. Like I think generally speaking, feeling a lot more confident than we were even just a couple of weeks ago. Like I think our form has really picked up. It's 3 wins in a row with 3 clean sheets in a row away from home. It does start to bode a whole lot better in that sense. And it's, you just have to have a reasonable home form and all of a sudden you're looking quite comfortable. So hopefully the groundsmen at the MKM have been doing their work over the last week or so, and hopefully things are starting to look a little bit better there for the weekend. But I guess we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah. What's your prediction? What's your score?
Oh, I reckon we can beat Burnley, and I reckon we can get a draw against Norwich. I'm going super confident. I'll say 4 points from these games. I just, there's something about that Burnley game where I'm just like, they can't score goals. We've scored against them already this season, and we're better now. So I could see a repeat of the Sheffield United game, and we're overdue a win against Norwich, so I feel like we can get something from them. So I'll say 4 points from these 2 games. How about you?
Yeah, that'd be awesome. I've got. I'm going to go 1-1 on because I hope there's at least a goal scored. But I'll go 1-1 for Burnley, and then we'll go 3-0 for City to win against the what type of bird are they again? They're
the Canaries.
Canaries. Shit bird. No.
Yeah. Well, it's big call. We'll see how it all goes this weekend. But look, thank you for joining me for this one, Dill.
Yeah, cheers, mate. Thank you.
And thanks everyone for tuning in. We'll be back this time next week to hopefully be reviewing 2 successful matches against Burnley and Norwich. But until then, come on, City.